All right, I believe we are live. There we go, it's working. Hey, everyone. All right, well, welcome back to our very special Small Business Week celebration, our virtual town hall with small business owners from the district. So first, I just want to say that, we can't see you guys who's watching unless you put something in the comments. So if you have a question, comment, anything like that, just throw an emoji in the comments and we'll see you. And then we can get your question answered as well. We will also be reposting this on our YouTube page after we are finished this today. I was going to say this evening. It's the afternoon. All right. And so just a quick disclaimer up front. Appearance on this town hall doesn't necessarily indicate endorsement of my campaign unless explicitly stated otherwise. So keep that in mind. Like I said, this is Small Business Week and we're celebrating. So I have a great conversation today about owning and starting and running small businesses in our community and what the state can do to help facilitate that a little bit better. So we'll start with a round of introductions. If you want to say your name, where you're from, your business, how long you've been in business, anything like that, go right ahead. And we'll start with the Hubbards.
I'm Taylor Hubbard. I own Taylor Hubbard Photography, located in Waconia.
I'm Martin Hubbard, her husband. I own the Chanhassan and Excelsior Dock Cinemas out in Carver and Hennepin County here. I've been operating those theaters since 2018.
All right. Teresa and Doug.
Hi, I'm Teresa Andrys, and we own Sunleaf Naturals, and our factory is located in Waconia, Minnesota, and our home is in Chaska, Minnesota.
Great.
We've been in business since 2007, and we've always been here in Waconia, and a great community.
Great, for sure. Well, thanks for being here. And last but not least, John.
Yeah, hi, I'm John Hayes. I'm the owner of Enki Brewing in Victoria. And we've been here since 2012. We started in the historic creamery building and we outgrew that in about 3 years. And then we relocated about 3 blocks down the street to the building we're in right now.
Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. We've got such a great, thriving small business community all across Carver County, downtown, Victoria, Chaska, Chanhassan, Waconia, everywhere. And you guys are a huge part of that in our communities. So thank you so much for lending your expertise and your voice to this conversation today. And again, if anyone's watching that has comments, please feel free to leave questions or comments in the comment or the chat box on Facebook, and we will see them. But we'll start out with a couple questions that came in throughout the week. First, did you have other business experience before venturing out on your own in your current businesses? And we'll go reverse order. So we'll go John first. And
I guess the answer is no. I mean, this is the first small business that I've started. I worked in businesses, so that's somewhat helpful, but certainly dramatically different than being the owner of your own business.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right, Teresa and Doug.
I think we're on mute.
You're still muted. There we go. I do it all the time.
Okay.
There you go. You're good.
Yes, we did have a small business before this one, so we kind of knew what we were in for when we started this business. And prior to that, we both had work experience in our fields. Started a business. That one kind of did some other stuff and then started this business. So that was very helpful. A lot easier the second time around.
Good. Yeah. For sure. A little experience under the belt. All right. I don't know, Taylor or Martin, whoever wants to go first.
I guess I'll go first.
Ladies first. Right?
2 businesses, 1 camera. Yeah, so I had worked for another photographer in Waconia. He had a portrait studio. I had, after I graduated with a degree in photography, I came to work for him. I worked for him for about 7 years before eventually kind of acquiring his assets and phasing out his studio name into my own. And I've been there for about 10 years. In 2 different locations in the downtown area. So,
my past experience, a wide experience. I I owned a karate school at one point in time, a cleaning company. But before acquiring before acquiring the cinemas, I did work for them. I worked for the previous owners for many years. It was sold in between the time my first employers, or however you want to put it, and I bought it towards the tail end. So that's kind of where we sit. So a little experience here and there.
Yeah, quite a wide variety of how you guys got to where you are now. Appreciate that. So about setting up your current business that you have now, what kind of things did you have to consider before starting or in the process of starting? And how did you decide to set up in Carver County versus a Hennepin or Ramsey County? And let's go with Teresa and Doug first.
Okay, well, we already lived in Chaska, and we have children, small children at the time, and we wanted to remain fairly close to them. And when we went looking for buildings to rent for manufacturing space, there wasn't a lot to choose from. It was difficult to find something affordable. So instead of going east, we came more west.
I think we're having a little bit of audio trouble. Is that just my computer? Are you guys okay? There's a little bit of audio like going in and out on your guys' computer end. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Yet another reason everyone's going to get tired of me saying this, but we need state border-to-border broadband for this reason.
So should we just talk a little bit louder, do you think, or?
It's weird. It's going in and out, in and out. Here, let me mute. I'll mute you guys and then unmute you and see if that happens, if that helps. All right. In the meantime, let's Martin and Taylor, if you guys want to take that question.
Question again.
Why Carver County?
I'll go first. Mine's real easy. My businesses were already here, so I just purchased the buildings and kind of here. Can't easily move my business. So.
Right. So like I said, I'd previously worked for somebody whose studio was located in Waconia. He was like a third generation studio. The name had changed each time, and he really didn't want to see it go away. He had some health conditions that kind of prevented him from continuing on with the business. And so I wanted to carry that legacy, and I guess I'm kind of technically a fourth generation studio there, but it's a totally different name. And I really enjoy the town of Waconia. I kind of call myself like an unofficial townie, even though we live in Chaska. I've been out there for so long. It's just an awesome community. So wouldn't have had it any other way.
Definitely. Yeah. John.
Well, I moved to Carver County in 1991, so I've lived here quite a while. I've seen a lot of growth. Certainly Victoria especially is a prosperous community. There were no breweries in the area other than Excelsior, had just opened up actually just months before we started our business. Actually just a month before we started our business. I like it here, and the community has been incredibly supportive. So it's worked out.
Definitely. I gotta say, when I was bartending at the Borough, right behind Enki, and we had that pairing or that collaboration on that beer, Foxy Haze. We sold that left and right. I mean,
yeah, let's be clear. Foxy, Haze, nothing to do with my name.
Yeah.
No one would describe me that way.
We should have changed it. All right, Teresa and Doug, let's see if you guys are.
Well, we moved our computer closer to the Wi-Fi, so hopefully they're good now. Well, we were already living in Chaska when we started our business, and we had small children, so we wanted to work fairly close to home. And we found that, it was not easy to find a affordable manufacturing space
in Carver County.
Carver County, and so we ended up coming west. And, things were a little bit more affordable at that time. And so we settled here, and we love the community of Waconia. It's been wonderful to work here.
Awesome. Great. All right. So let's talk about kind of setting up the businesses and, how you got the idea. What are the barriers to getting started? Is it local government? Is it state government? Was it other things, societal expectations, any kind of barriers that you ran into? And if you could include some positive experiences too, something, you and John, you and I have talked about your, relationship with the local government and how that's helped be successful. So if we can kind of touch on that. Teresa and Doug, we'll start with you guys.
Well, I really don't think that we really didn't have any barriers. When we first started Sunleaf, probably the biggest barrier for us at first was to find something that we could afford to start a business, because we knew that we were going to be bootstrapping. In other words, we weren't going to pay it, kind of do the pay as you go. And so our biggest challenge was to find a place that we could afford and actually this from there. So as far as setting up the business, working with the state, it really was a positive experience. So helpful and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've always, whether it be doing our, taxes, paying our taxes, doing our quarterly reports, or just calling them with a question, about that business question. So we've always had a good experience.
It was always very responsive, very quick. Whenever we would have something that we would call into the state, to one of the state departments offices, they answered the phone, and it was like, this is pretty nice. So we've always appreciated that, but yeah, I guess we've been lucky. The type of business that we're in doesn't have a lot of restrictions or regulation. So yeah, it's always been good for us.
That's good to hear. Yeah. Let's go with Martin and Taylor.
I guess I share the same sentiments in regards to not feeling like there's necessarily barriers. I think sometimes in my industry, there's a really low bar to kind of jump into it. A lot of people, it's a very desirable career path, which I totally understand. I'm in that career path myself. So I think sometimes what I kind of combat is maybe lack of barriers. I don't know. Sometimes there are businesses that operate that maybe aren't conducting themselves legally, and they sometimes unknowingly. So that's maybe what I face a lot of times. But trying to make sure that you take all the appropriate steps to set up your business appropriately and conduct yourself in a professional manner, I think is helpful. And to share the same sentiment as Teresa and Doug, whenever I've ever had questions in regards to things, working with Carver County and the state, they've been very, very helpful and responsive. So I don't have any bad stories. So
Good. We love it. Good.
I think I can agree with everyone else. I don't, are there any barriers? My barriers would come from Hollywood. And so that type of, locally, there are no barriers. I think everyone understands that a movie theater is kind of, in some smaller cities, the kind of like the lifeline of some entertainment. So the local governments have been very, very respectful and responsive to anything, and very helpful, willing to sit down and talk at any time. So it's been very good out here. So
good. That's excellent. All right, John.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily call them barriers, but I would call them hurdles. So, I think of a barrier as something that is just impossible to get around or over. Hurdles make things more challenging. And unlike Teresa and Doug, I'm in a highly regulated industry. So I guess what would prevent people from starting this business is just the daunting challenge of going through all the regulatory agencies to get authorization to start your business. So, we have the the federal government with the Alcohol Tax and Trade Bureau. We've got the state Alcohol and Gambling Division. We've got the Department of Agriculture. We have City Council. I mean, and this Department of Revenue. I mean, like everybody else does. So it can be challenging, especially at first. And we started with 4 people, and trying to get your hands around the Met Council. Let's add them into the mix. There would not be my favorite of the agencies. We had several challenges just getting things accomplished and working with the agencies. I will say that when I look at the past 8 years, it has probably become more challenging than it was 8 years ago. The regulations have intensified. Staffing within the agencies has been cut. So the ability, and they're not bad people, they're good people working there. They just are overwhelmed with the tasks that have been asked of them. So I see challenges intensifying for small businesses, not simplifying.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, we'll get to how we can change that or fix that, help a little bit more, right? So the next question may or may not apply, but if you have an opinion, feel free to share. What's your opinion on the TIF program? So for those folks who are watching who don't know, and I personally didn't know a lot about it till I got the job that I have now, it's tax increment financing, meaning it's a method of financing real estate development costs to encourage developers to construct buildings or other private improvements, and B, to pay for public improvements like streets, sidewalks, that kind of thing. And it uses additional property taxes paid as a result of development in that district to pay for part of those development costs. And I can go more into detail if necessary, but yeah, we want to start with John, and if you guys have opinions, feel free to share. Okay,
well, here in the city of Victoria, the TIF financing has been a rather polarizing topic. Our mayor has been rather opposed to it. He's criticized businesses that have been brought into town with the aid of TIF financing. Like any other tool, it's a tool for communities to use for development. And if it's a development project that is beneficial to the community, why not take advantage of that? I think the problem comes when developments don't go the way they're planned, and it's not as successful, and it doesn't generate the taxes that were intended to be generated, that were financing the project in part. So it's a double-edged sword. I'm certainly not opposed to TIF financing. We've never used TIF financing ourselves.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Taylor and Martin.
So I'll give you my politician answer for this because I've had to answer this question before. I had to do, like you, some research about it. I personally, as a business owner, have not yet done any sort of TIF financing, but I was supportive of it in regards to the politician answer. Being a tailored fit thing in regards to kind of what John touched on, and taking blighted properties and revitalizing them to kind of benefit development economically in a city. I think it's a good idea. I think it needs to be a custom approach to the business and the city, so it's a mutually agreed upon endeavor that both parties, ultimately get what they desire from doing that. I also think, when I answered this question a year ago, that it would be really great if the focus could be small to mid-range businesses for this. I feel like sometimes larger corporations really can take advantage of this, and smaller businesses don't really know about it or don't really take advantage of it. So that would be kind of what would be fair and transparent with it. So that's my answer.
That's my answer too.
I was gonna say anything. Yeah. Great. Teresa and Doug, you guys have anything to add?
It doesn't really apply to us. We're not involved in that.
Sure. All right. So putting COVID-19 aside, we'll get to that in a minute, but are there any barriers or hurdles that you continue to face, like an ongoing challenge And Teresa and Doug, we'll start with you guys.
Well, as I'm sure all small businesses will probably say that health insurance is a big deal. You know, when you quit your job to start a small business and all of a sudden have to buy your own health insurance, it's very scary and very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it just continues to be one of our major expenses. And so I guess that would be the number one thing for us is health insurance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I've heard that pretty consistently across our community.
Yeah.
Both in small business and not, you know, especially self-employed folks. It's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah. John?
I had to unmute. Well, okay, unlike the hurdles, yes, I do have a barrier. And there are challenges, challenges of getting good employees, providing good pay and things like that. The barrier that I face in my business is I cannot sell beer in my establishment in a 12-ounce can or a 16-ounce can. And that's a substantial barrier for us. I cannot sell a keg of beer to a customer. And that is holding our business back. And it's unlike most other states. So I think that Minnesota is a bit antiquated in its liquor laws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an extremely complicated issue. I learned a lot about this past session, or 2 sessions ago, rather. Yeah, I think that's the feeling across the board. And you've got so many different, we could have a whole town hall on this, on liquor laws in Minnesota. But yeah, extremely complicated. I understand that.
We have made advances. It's nice that you can buy liquor on Sundays. I think that's a great benefit to consumers that was opposed by the liquor stores. I know what their argument was, but I don't agree with it. I think what we do that makes things better for the consumer should be at front and center.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Martin, Taylor?
You can go. You have more barrier.
I think my hurdles, not necessarily barriers, but hurdles for the theater industry would be as technology changes, something's always changing, and that cash flow or the access to capital has to be there. These things aren't cheap. In 2012, we went from film to digital, and that was a very expensive endeavor for the company. And I think, you see theaters moving to recliner seats and all types of other different things, selling alcohol or putting bars in or restaurants inside the theaters. And the customer expects that, and we give it to them. And then that fad goes away, and then we're stuck with it. And then now it's time to, move on to the next thing. And I think it's always trying to stay, the barrier is trying to stay, or the hurdle's trying to stay in front of the customer. And how do I put this? In front of the competition, and trying to guide and lead and not be the second, because if you're second, you're always behind the 8 ball. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So for me, that's the hurdle, trying to stay in front of everything. Right now we're competing with streaming, VOD. And so, that has taken away a lot of my clientele. So we're going to talk about COVID later, but let's just say that before COVID hit and before we started putting movies out on VOD and streaming, on a Friday night, we could probably have 300 people, or on Saturday night or a Saturday, 500 people. Well, yesterday being Saturday, I had 19 people come in for the day. And so that's a big hurdle, big barrier to get past that, when the product for me is, how do I put this? It's not new product, it's old product. So right now I'm showing you something that was made in 2006 or 1932. And so, I'm charging you $6 to see it, but you can sit down in front of your TV and turn it on and watch it for free. Why do you need to come to me? And then on top of that, you're going to sell me popcorn for $6 a bag. Come on, man. So, all that stuff kind of sits there. So I guess it's trying to stay in front in front of everyone. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of rambled on there for a second. She let me go first. This is what happened when you let me go
Well,
first.
the reason why I let him go first is, I mean, I'll touch back on to my, the first question with the barriers. For me, my industry, there actually might be, and I question this all the time, a lack of barriers sometimes, because of some of the things in place. And I wouldn't say that the state isn't, trying to check and make sure people are conducting themselves legally and professionally, but there are so many people that kind of just really fly under the radar that I think it's really difficult. And so for me, competition kind of just not maybe doing everything that they need to be doing to run. And then your clients are saying, well, why are you so much more expensive? Well, because I pay sales tax and all my taxes and everything along those lines, I have to compensate for that, because I don't want to do things not legit. And so that's kind of my situation. But, it was funny. I was in a part of a networking group, and this guy used to own a masonry business, got up and did a presentation, and he said, everybody wants to be in the masonry business. And I was like, really? I was like, and so I kind of had to shift my thinking, like, the biggest competitor that I have is staring back at me in the mirror, and I can only kind of worry about what I'm doing and run my business the way that I want to run it. And it doesn't really matter who's around me as long as I am making all the smart choices for myself. So when I say the lack of barriers, it's not like I'm running around saying that person's not legal, that person's not running that. No, it's just that might be just the biggest thing in my industry. So anyways,
for sure.
I'm rambling.
No, for sure. When my small business experience is mostly in horse training businesses, and there was certainly a lot of that. Why are your prices higher? Well, we're paying our workers an appropriate wage, or whatever it might be. So, yeah, I can definitely identify with that. And healthcare. We could go on and on about that. Healthcare in the horse industry is almost non-existent. So, but so back to COVID-19, or bringing that up first. How has the coronavirus and the pandemic affected your business, and what do you think the state should be doing to help? Maybe that's unemployment, or more PPP, grant loans, mask mandate, anything like that. Let's start with actually, let's go back to you, Martin and Taylor.
Do you want me to go first fast, or do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. I could go all day about COVID. No, in business, in his business, but not really my business. The biggest thing that was affected by my business currently, is event, sports, and individual photography. So with the sports kind of being delayed or canceled, the pictures that go along with it get delayed or canceled as well. And having to rethink like higher volume things that I normally do in my business. I do like children's specials, and I have to go back and either think, do I want to try to think of a creative way of working around this, or do I want to just let it go for the year and just lick my wounds? And wedding photography was the other thing. So that, I was fortunate that all my clients that, most all of them just postponed, and we rescheduled all the dates for next year and things like that. But even clients that would want to go forward with their wedding, having to ask yourself the risk liability of it, and then just the liability of keeping all of, like, I have 2 part-time employees, and they have high-risk family members, and trying to make sure that I keep them safe and myself safe and my family safe. So it's like a lot to think about, but I'm going to stop there and go over to him.
So everyone knows cinemas around the world closed March 17th, and they're closed for like 6 months. And trying to reopen, I reopened back in, you could open in June. So June 10th, you could open a cinema or a movie theater in Minnesota anyway. Of course, still in some states, they're still closed. But it also has to do with product. So not only are we working with the state, we're also working with Hollywood and other exhibitors or other distributors around the world. And so I finally opened sometime in August, and I just lost my train of thought. To say that it's like I just bought my business and it's now pay as you go. People don't understand that, you've been closed for 6 months, you still have bills that you have to pay, whether they're employees or health insurance, electricity, garbage. There are things that you don't think about that are still going on, or garbage. I didn't think I should have stopped the garbage from coming. My mind was, I'm closed, it's empty. You're not going to come and pick it up, and you're going to be kind, you're going to be nice, you're not going to charge me. Well, guess what, Martin? It's $500 a month. And you need to pay all this in order to get us to take your trash. And all of those things are out there. People, that kind of affect us. Does that make sense? Going through, the mask mandates, it doesn't bother me. It does bother some people. It's coming in, they see the signs, they put it on, they respect it. Hey, I'm gonna wear this mask, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna sit and watch this movie. And as soon as the lights go out, the mask may come off because I'm eating popcorn. Mm-hmm. It's kind of getting through that, talking about, PPP grant loans and stuff like that to keep my business in check. We just lost the Malacca Theater because they couldn't make it. You're going to see more and more smaller independent theaters falling off. We're not independently wealthy. So if things don't pick up, you'll see the Chanhassan cinema. I don't want to say that, but the reality is the reality,
So I pressed one of our local state representatives about this about a week ago, and I got kind of a very generic answer of, well, we've done everything we could to allow for safe opening. And I said, if people don't feel safe, they're not going to come back. You can put all the legislation and everything in place for it, but what you really need to do is help businesses like movie theaters and other venues that rely on a volume of people to be in that space, to be able to stay afloat financially, through maybe grants, opportunities. And it shouldn't be struck down that, if you don't pay your sales tax, if you're behind on that, then we're not going to give you a grant. No, you should just lay those barriers down and just help those businesses out. Because I told him that you have to ask yourself if you are willing to let these businesses go, because they can only stay afloat independently for so long, and then that's it. Poof, they're gone, and that there's just no coming back from that. So
yeah, and then all we're left with is the Walmarts and Targets of the world.
Yeah, like a shell of an empty building of a place that used to be there. Yeah.
And these small, local businesses are what makes our community part of what makes our community so wonderful. We pride ourselves here on the small town feel, and that's how you get it. You don't get it with the Walmarts and Targets of the world. You get it with investing in local businesses like this. So absolutely agree. Doug and Teresa, do you guys want to take this one?
Sure. We are a manufacturing company, and we sell direct to retail stores. So when, a lot of the stores closed back in March, our business definitely took a hit. And luckily, we're in some stores. So we were able to maintain a fairly okay level of business. More stores have been opening, and our business is picking up again quite well. But and during that time, when we're slower, we thought about how can we make the best use of this time now? And so, we looked at, just kind of did a reevaluation of our business. You kind of step back and what's the profitability of each product? Do we want to, change our product mix? Work on some packaging. Maybe we want to work on developing a companion product to a very successful line, and that type of thing. So we worked on things like that, which so we're gradually getting busier, and we're able to keep employees here, And so we feel very fortunate. But like Doug said, we've always been kind of bootstrappers. So we're very conservative with our money and had savings to kind of get us through that time. So that helped a ton.
Mm-hmm. Good, good. And I can imagine that you guys that have employees view them as, you know, part of your family, and you've got to look out for them and protect them too. And that's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. John.
Well, you know, like Martin's business, we were closed, although we were able to do curbside sales, and the community was incredibly supportive of us, and so that helped. Going forward with respect to our business, we're still at a reduced capacity, just as Martin's business is, and I'm okay with that. You know, we've adjusted our business model a little bit to accommodate that. Like Taylor was saying, I think the most important thing we need to do is protect everybody, keep everybody's safety in mind. And I see bars and restaurants who really are just giving this lip service and do not care. And there are patrons that are okay with that. I believe that we're going to position ourselves 180 degrees opposite of that. We have removed half the tables. We're fortunate in that we have a large space, so we can move out half the tables. You know, we get full, and then our bartenders say, "Can't we move some of those tables back in?" I say, "No, they're that's it. That's all we're going to do," and we have to turn people away if necessary. And we have a lot of space outside. And so we're allowing that. I do think that we're going to see things get a little worse as we get into the colder months, and people have to be inside if they're going to go to bars and restaurants and tap rooms. And we're seeing numbers creep up on cases, both, I mean, certainly in Wisconsin, and we're seeing it in Minnesota. So I think the challenge for us is to stay vigilant. My company, our people were tremendous. We came together and said, we are going to figure out how to survive this. And so I was really proud of our people. And we did. We modified our business and we've been okay. And the state has helped. The federal government has helped with PPP and Minnesota's Department of Employment and Economic Development. And now we have another grant that we've applied for with the county. And those things offset some of the expenses that Martin said, they don't, you know, your rent doesn't get cut in half unless you have a very friendly landlord. And so you have fixed expenses that don't go away just because you have reduced capacity. So I think the challenge for us is just to stay vigilant and weather this out at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're getting a lot of comments in the comments complimenting you all on prioritizing the safety of your customers and banding together, sticking it out, doing what you can to survive. And yeah, you guys should check out these comments after we're finished here. So does a labor force exist in Carver County? And would affordable housing help us have a better, more stable labor force here in the county? And we'll start with John.
Okay, so let's talk about Victoria, because I think that's the epicenter of where we have the biggest problem of a insufficient labor force. I mean, Victoria is an affluent community. We have no socioeconomic diversity. I mean, limited. We have a huge problem. And so I think we need to really, our community needs to really examine what it's willing to do to change that. Certainly so that we have employees, but also so that we have a more diverse community, which will make it stronger and healthier in the long run. Yeah. So we have a huge problem with labor, inadequate labor force.
Yeah. Teresa and Doug.
Well, for us, we don't have a huge small number of employees, and most of the people that work for us. So, if we do need another employee, we usually find one through word of mouth. So, yeah, and most of our employees are part-time. Some of them are already retired and just want a little job to work at to, make a little extra income. So we haven't had a problem, but we're a much smaller, different business.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. Taylor and Martin.
Just tackling the labor force, my employees are usually 16, 17, 18-year-olds on the younger side. Do I have problems? Right? No, you can usually find what I need to supply the theater. Right now, I don't need them. It's just me 7 days a week. So for me, the labor force is there. So that's kind of where I said, I'll let you answer that.
I do think more affordable housing is a benefit, and it's a benefit to all the industries in our community, to have the workforce in place. Personally, I employ a college student part-time, and I also employ a college graduate, and she actually drives an hour and a half one way.
Wow.
Every day to work for me. And I know that she wants the experience, and that's why she's willing to make that commitment. And I was, really had a lot of, had kind of a heart-to-heart with her before I hired her. I said, are you willing to do this? Because, I can understand if you're not willing to do this. And she wanted to do it. She lives with a family member. And so I don't know if she would necessarily move closer to be closer, but I also know the realistic point of she could probably move into a more rural area and have it be affordable, but not I know she couldn't afford to live in like Waconia. So yeah, I think we could benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. All right. Thoughts on minimum wage? It's quite the hot topic lately, especially in the restaurant and bar industry. So actually, let's start with John, and then we'll circle back around. And I'll put you on the spot.
Let me unmute. So I've been thinking about this. This is a real tough topic because we're talking about fairness, and I wholeheartedly believe in fairness. I believe that people deserve a livable wage. I don't know what that means. What is a livable wage? It's different depending on your particular circumstances. I think we have a huge problem with inequity in especially larger businesses where we have people that have, they are getting $10 or $12 an hour, and you have people like Jeff Bezos, with hundreds of, well, at least over $100 billion. You have some businesses that can afford to pay their employees more than other businesses. And so you hear about restaurants saying, boy, that would just push us out of business. And I do believe that. So imposing a minimum wage or increasing a minimum wage to 15 or 20 or 25, I don't know what the right number is, will benefit employees. I kind of think that what we need to do is look at it from the standpoint of business profits. We have unfair distribution of business profits. And I recognize the argument that the business owner is taking an economic risk, and so maybe they get to share disproportionately, but it's not fair the way it's happening now. And so we need to address that issue. And maybe I've gone far afield from your minimum wage question, but that's my viewpoint.
All related. You're good. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go Martin and Taylor, and then Teresa and Doug.
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
I really like John's answer. For me, for being a portrait studio owner, I think there are a lot of studios that are just sole proprietorships. A lot of people kind of working for themselves, maybe not necessarily having employees. If they do, the independent contractors is like a really popular thing in our industry. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a whole other argument in and of itself. But I think that, like John said, I'm a big fan of higher wages, but they do come at a cost to a small business. And, you have to raise what, your product that you're offering and whether or not you price yourself out. And that's the teeter-totter, the seesaw of doing that. And I think there is an inequity piece of it. I think that there are industries that definitely can afford to pay their labor force higher wages, but I also think there are cases to be made in certain areas that maybe that's not, it's just not plausible and maybe not, I don't want to say necessary because I feel like that's a really bad way of saying that, but yeah.
I'll agree what she's saying and kind of add on to kind of we think about coming from a movie theater that I have 15 or 16, 17-year-old kids. They don't need $10 an hour. They don't need $12 an hour. That's not necessarily so. They might be the breadwinner for their family, and so they need that. But at the same rate, we can only charge so much for our product. You're not going to go to, because your mind tells you not to. You're not going to go to a $20 movie and just watch the movie. You want more for $20. There has to be a value there. So your mind is telling you there's no value there. However, you'll go to a Twins game and pay maybe $50 for the seats, and all you do is kind of sit there and you're on your phone. You're saying, your value is different. What am I saying? I agree with minimum wage, but then not every business can afford to pay $10 to $12 because their business model doesn't support it. So we have to find some sort of way. And then, you start raising minimum wage. Price of your hamburger is now $10. You go to McDonald's, it's $10 for a number one. That's expensive. So I've got to shell over $10, and now I got to shell over $20 next week because they're paying their employee $20 an hour. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I was at McDonald's for 7 years. They work hard. I'll never go back. If I can stay away, I'll stay away. They do a great job, trust me. But we really have to look at, the higher the minimum wage, inflation is going to go up.
Mm-hmm. Teresa and Doug.
With our business, since we're a manufacturer and we manufacture so many different things and a lot of it is handcrafted, it does take a lot of training and experience. And of course, long-term employees are much more productive than, someone new. So we normally don't always start everyone above $15 an hour, but after everyone's been here a couple of years, they earn $15 or more per hour. But it's worth it to us because of the training that's involved, and yeah,
we do what we can.
Yeah,
great. Yeah, this is quite the hot topic at the legislature as well. There's some pretty strong activist groups that really push for $15 an hour minimum wage across the board. And there's some activist groups in the restaurant and bar industry space that are pushing for a tip credit to kind of offset that. We've got unions involved. There's a lot of folks involved in this conversation. And things like this, I think at the legislature need to have all the experts at the table for that specific reason. We're going to have to be creative. The legislators don't know everything all the time. You just can't as one person, but you need to know who's, in your space and in your industry, that who you can ask. So for this, it would be you guys. I'm certainly going to involve you in these conversations and see how we can get to a place where, maybe it's not a minimum wage, or maybe whatever it might be, to make it work out for both employees and business owners. Certainly don't want to do anything to make it harder for small businesses to set up shop and continue to operate, but want to make sure we're looking out for our employees too. And that kind of leads us into our next topic. And I've certainly learned a lot from my father on this topic. His small business, they do instructional business design for other companies and certification materials for CPAs. And it's a little complicated. Nothing I was ever interested in going into, I'll say that. But his philosophy was always set up an environment where your employees want to come back and want to be productive and want to work. And that includes things like paid family and medical leave, extended vacation time, whatever that might be, that's a little bit above and beyond. So in talking with him, he's a very strong libertarian, I'll say, generally. And he's always like, well, the government shouldn't tell businesses how to do that or what to do. That's true if they all operate like you guys do and like my dad's company does. But we're not quite there yet. So how do we get there? Part of that discussion is paid family and medical leave. Now, the House passed a bill that the Senate turned down last session that was pretty strong, pretty interesting. Would have been great, especially with COVID-19. So it was a self-funded, small contributions from employees and employers. Basically would end up costing about $2 a week per employee over the long term for a really great program where you're getting that extended paid family and medical leave. So wanted to get your guys' opinions and thoughts on that. And we'll start with Teresa and Doug.
Well, most of our employees are part-time, so I don't think we're the right people to ask about that, really.
All right. What about Taylor and Martin?
Okay, so I know what you're talking about as far as the bill that was proposed. I was a really big advocate for that. I also have part-time employees, and so did it cover part-time employees? Was that part of it? Wasn't it?
I think the original proposal did, and then I'm not sure that was in the
I mean, I was very supportive of it. I was willing to pay more. Just like as a self-employed person, John had kind of touched on that you take economic risks. We, after 10 years of marriage, decided to have a kid. And I remember 3 days after having him, laying in the hospital bed, and just the tidal wave of dread washed over me of how was I going to make it all work? What was I going to be able to do? And, childcare is expensive, and we had plans in place, but, you start saying the what ifs. I only gave myself 2 weeks of maternity leave. That was probably one of the most foolish things. And maybe actually I like to admit that, mentally it was really nice because, there's so much change just with having a child. And being in my space, in my job, what I do, and having that as big of an identity as me was important. But that's a whole other topic. But to be able to pay into something affordable and have time paid for that I could relax and have a routine and not have that worry, that would have been huge. And having our child, we had him in a time where it was a lull for me business wise, and that wasn't on accident, planning that stuff out, unfortunately, is all went into doing that. So I was a really big supportive person. Anyway.
I come at this 2 different ways. Is I like people. And so I think there should be that paid time off and that family leave if someone needs it. On the other side, that's me, the employee. I need my time off to spend with my family. From the employer standpoint, again, I have to be able to afford to pay them not to be here. Someone has to do the job. And if I have to step in the role for a little bit to do it, I'm okay with that. But it depends on how long that I'm stepping in, right? And I can only do it for so long. So more money out of my pocket, I don't like, because I might not have it. But that employee needs that time away. If I respect that employee, if I'm a great employer, I'll give them that time off and I'll take on that responsibility and I'll hold strong to them. Does that make sense? So I'm for it, but I don't want to give my money away.
Mm-hmm. Right. Definitely. I know you're not alone too. Taylor, someone just commented, your child is very cute. Congratulations. All right, John.
I'm for it. So I think California has a noteworthy family and medical leave program. I think it's paid for entirely by employees in that state. I'm not opposed to sharing some of that cost with employees, so having the employer share a part of that as well. I look at it as a safety net. I mean, and really what we're talking about not everybody needs it, but I suppose when you do these programs, everybody gets it. We're talking about the people who are most vulnerable, that if not for some program like this, it would be devastating or potentially devastating. I agree with Martin. There's going to be a hardship when we have we've experienced it this summer with the PPP and people getting, what was it, $600 a week extra unemployment. And we had employees that said, hey, you know what? I think I'll stay home. And we would really have liked them here. It would have been an economic disadvantage for them to come back. So there's always problems when we do implement these programs. And I can see the hardship that gets taken on by both the employee as well as the employer. So the idea is that we kind of share it, right? There's a little bit of hardship for the employer, but not too much. A little bit of hardship for the employee, but not too much. So when you're not working, you've got to depend on savings or some kind of resource.
It's very
nothing is easy.
No, absolutely not. I was just actually texting with my best friend last night. She goes, politics is really hard. Like everything is really hard. Yes. All right, so we've touched on healthcare, and I want to get a little bit more into that. Folks that know me know that I got into politics because of healthcare. My experience in trying to provide healthcare for employees in small businesses that I was involved with has been a nightmare, and I've done it in 2 different states, and neither one is doing it perfectly. So if healthcare reforms were to be made by the state legislature, would that help either decrease the cost of providing your employees healthcare, or relieve you of that burden altogether? How can the state be a better partner in that? Let's start with John.
So this is something I'm concerned about. Does the Affordable Care Act go away? And if it does go away, what happens? We do offer health care to our employees. We have very few employees that qualify, simply because, like many of you, we have most of our employees are part-time. And they're kids and they're on their parents' health plan. But we've had some employees, and I wanted to offer healthcare to our employees because I realized that I was excluding all these people from consideration who depend on healthcare. And I want to be able to hire the best brewer, not just the best brewer who doesn't need healthcare. I want to hire, the best chef, not just the one that has healthcare from her husband or from his wife. So we do that. Right now, I think that we are going to be down to maybe just one person that wants to be a member of our employer-sponsored plan, which means that we are no longer eligible. I'd like to think that the state of Minnesota will still have some kind of a healthcare insurance exchange, even if the Obamacare program goes away.
Definitely. I would love to see at least, Minnesota Care expanded as well. Something to make up for what the federal government may or may not do in the future. So definitely. Doug and Teresa.
Well, like here at Sunleaf, like John, we only have, we don't have any other full-time employees other than Teresa and I. The other full-time employees that we have moved on to other jobs, and we never replaced them. One of the reasons why we haven't replaced full-time employees is because of the health care costs that we would be, obligated, to, to take and, to fund. And so if some sort of healthcare reform that would make it easier or less expensive, to take and, for those costs, we would hire more full-time employees, rather than multiple part-timers. It's kind of hard to explain, but luckily in our business, most, all the employees that we have would, prefer part-time. So that's much easier for us from the healthcare standpoint of being able to try to figure out how would we even do this, because it's such a huge cost. So yeah, I would just say that, with healthcare being less expensive, it would be much easier to hire full-time employees and then make a bigger, stronger business as a result of that.
Taylor and Martin.
As an employer, I want to supply health insurance for all of my employees, full-time, part-time. It all comes at a cost, and it's very expensive. It's very, very expensive, and it's hard if that employer is if it's a small business, it's very hard to supply the insurance. I mean, you have to, and you've got to come up with it. So law says you've got to do X, but it makes it very, very hard for that small business. And it might be that one thing that puts the business out. It would be great if the state or the federal government could put in a universal policy. I'd love to have the same policy that our Congress people have. And then as a small business, maybe I pay into it, but I don't pay, $4,000 a month to cover 4 employees. Maybe I pay a little bit less, a lot less, to cover all of them, so we have decent health care. The prices are skyrocketing. It's out of control. And it's, sometimes as being a small business, I feel that people look at you like, okay, you have this brewery, so you must make tens of millions of dollars. And so therefore I'm going to run to you and I'm going to charge you $10,000 a month for this piece of paper. That's how I feel sometimes. And it's like, ugh, give us a break. So, we're the backbone of this country, right? We employ a lot of people. And so give us a little bit of a break to survive. We're not, well, I don't know about the rest of them, but we're not driving Porsches. All right. So give us a little bit of break so we can eat something other than ramen every now and then. That's all I'm asking for. So I had to make all of you laugh, but.
We do eat more than ramen noodles here. It's not that desperate over here yet. I share I echo a lot of the same thoughts as Doug and John in regards, and even Martin, in regards to just being, wanting to supply something and having it be unaffordable and just kind of being stuck in that. And Doug, in his statement of, it'd be really awesome to be able to hire a full-time person, give them this benefits package. That's, something that a larger company could do affordably. And so you have that person there instead of kind of piecemealing or patchworking it with part-time employment. So it'd be nice if that was in place, but yeah.
Well, hey, once I get elected, I will do my best to make that happen. So we're a little bit over time, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to have this discussion today. We're getting a lot of comments to that effect as well. Any last final thoughts of, what we can do to help support our small business community, both as a community and from the state legislature perspective? And we'll start with Teresa and Doug on this one.
Well, I think Doug and I just really appreciate that you've taken this time, Addie, to meet with us, and just knowing that there's, someone in state government that is thinking of the small businesses. Keep in mind when, legislation is being drafted, that just means a ton to us. So thank you.
Thank you. John.
Well, Addie, I'm impressed that you're doing a very good job of getting everybody's perspectives. I think sometimes politicians too often look at one side and support their ideas with one perspective. And I think you're doing a really good job. Like, for example, with the minimum wage, talk to employees, talk to employers. Absolutely. Get both sides and then find a solution. So I congratulate you on that, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Taylor and Martin, any last words, final words? Or your cat? I don't know.
I know. I'm so sorry. She just wanted to say, no, I really appreciate your invitation on. I think these conversations are important. I think input is important. I think, like you said, you can't know everything about everything. And so being able to ask for input helps drive smart decision and legislation. And then as far as ask for the community, go see a movie and buy a lot of popcorn. Even if you are feeling uncomfortable about sitting in a movie theater, just come in, buy huge buckets of popcorn. That's my ask.
Definitely. And some essential oils and some Enki Brewing beer. Wow. All right. All right, guys. So again, we will put this up on our Facebook page as soon as this is finished. We'll download it, put it up there, and join us again next Sunday, same time, same place for another discussion. Thank you all for being here so much. This has been great. Thank you.
Addie.
All right.
Bye.
See you later.